Good day to each and everyone. I am Cindy and Pamaong of BSHM 3A, and today I'm going to discuss the formalities of entry in and exit from the Philippines of Chapter 16. So, for our topic outlines, we have here the introduction, the Section 10 non-immigrants, and the seven categories, admissions of aliens under prearranged employment, the Board of Commissioners, the Balikbayan, Philippine foreign policy towards China, Philippines immigration policy on Indians, lifting immigration restrictions on South Africans, three types of passports, Philippine passports and fantasy passport. So for the Subic Special Investor Visa, Special Economic Zone Visa, we also have here the Special Clark Economic Zone Visas under Executive Order number 880 of 1993 and Executive Order number 80 on 1993. The Cagayan Economic Zone and Freeport Visa in RA 7922, Investor Interest Related Project or Tourist Establishment under Executive Order number 63. Extension of stay, exclusion of foreigners, exit requirements, Republic Act number 9225 or the Dual Citizenship Law. So for our learning objectives, we have here to identify various government requirements for foreigners to enter the Philippines, explain the importance of a valid passport when traveling, enumerate the privileges of Filipinos covered by the Balikbayan program, and discuss the dual citizenship. So for the next slide is the entry and admission of the foreigners into the Philippines are matter of privilege because every foreign state has absolute and exclusive power of government in its own territory, although entitled to all the rights and privileges of a friendly guest. They cannot claim the right to enjoy privileges which by their nature belong exclusively to the host. Unquestionably, every state has a fundamental right to the integrity of its territory and are exclusive and peaceable possessions of its dominions, which it may guard and defend by possible means against any attack. So the international community leaves states at liberty fix the conditions under which foreigners should be allowed to enter their territory. So these conditions may be more or less convenient to foreigners, but they are a legitimate manifestation of territorial power and not contrary to law. So this chapter deals with the requirements of foreigners as well as Filipinos for entry in and exit from the Philippines territory. So under Section 10, non-immigrants must present for admissions into the Philippines and expired passports or official documents in the nature of passports issued by the government of the countries to which they owe allegiance or other travel documents showing their origins and identity as prescribed by regulations, and valid passport visas granted by diplomatic or consular officers. So non-immigrants must present unexpired passports and valid visas prior to their admissions into the Philippines. So the Philippines Immigration Act provides seven visas categories for non-immigrants, namely, we have here the temporary visitor, the transient, the seaman, the treaty trader or treaty investor, the foreign government officials, student, and the pre-arranged employment. Second is an alien is allowed only one immigration visa category at any given time. So for the next slide is the recent shifts in Philippine foreign policy towards China have led to significant changes in immigration guidelines for five major classes of Chinese nationals, including those the People's Republic of China or the PROC, Hong Kong SAR, Macau SAR Certificate of Identity or the CL holders, and Taiwan or the Republic of China. They can now obtain multiple entry, temporary visitor, or business visas for up to 6 months, even without prior Department of Foreign Affairs authorization, by submitting essential documents such as a visa application form, a valid passport, an entry visa for their next destinations, and a confirmed return ticket. Chinese travelers are now allowed an initial stay of 59 days, whether traveling individually or in groups. So we also have here the Philippine immigration policy on Indian. Temporary visitor visas are available to Indian national provided They applied for a visa from their country of origin, example India, or from their place of legal or permanent residence. They are no longer permanently residing in India, or those who have been previously issued a temporary visitor visa may apply for a visa from any Philippine embassy or consulate in a third country if they have not been subsequently denied a visitor's visa, blacklisted, or deported from the Philippines. So, lifting immigration restrictions on South Africans on October 8, 1993, the UN General Assembly lifted all economic sanctions imposed against South Africa in the areas of trade, investment, finance, travel, and transportations. Hence, South Africans are no longer restricted aliens. So, for passport requirements, a passport is defined as an official document of identity and nationality issued to a person intending to travel or sojourn in foreign countries. It is the property of a government of the issuing authority. It is not a private property of the person to whom it has been issued. So there are three types of passports, namely diplomatic passports. So these are issued for persons imbued with diplomatic status or are on diplomatic missions, such as the President and the former Presidents of the Republic of the Philippines, the Vice President and the former Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines, Senate President and Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Cabinet Secretaries, Undersecretaries of the Assistant Secretaries of the Department of Foreign Affairs, the ambassadors, the foreign service officers of all ranks in the career diplomatic service, attaches, and members of their families. Second, official passports are issued to all government officials and employees on official trip abroad but who are not on diplomatic missions or delegates to international or regional conferences or has been accorded diplomatic status such as the undersecretaries and assistant secretaries of the cabinet under the Department of Foreign Affairs, associate justice, and other members of the judiciary. Third, we have here the regular passports are issued to private persons who are not eligible to diplomatic or official passports, including government officials or employees going abroad for pleasure or other personal reasons. So for the next slide is a foreign national entering the Philippines must have a passport or travel document valid for at least 6 months. They must always carry their passports to avoid being classified as undocumented. Alternatively, they may carry photocopies showing essential details such as name, issuance and expiry dates, latest visa and admission stamp to aid in obtaining replacements if lost. In case of passport loss, non-immigrant aliens must report it immediately to the police and secure a report, which should be submitted to the embassy or consulate and the Bureau of Immigrations for record purposes. So for the next slide is a Philippine passport. In the Philippines, a passport is a document issued by the Department of Foreign Affairs certifying the Philippine citizenship of the holder and is used for travel purposes. On the other hand, the document is a certification containing the descriptions and other personal circumstances of the bearer, issued for direct travel to or from the Philippines and normally valid for short periods or for a particular trip. It is issued only to persons whose citizenship is doubtful and who fall under the following categories: the Filipino citizens returning to the Philippines who are one of the reasons or another has lost his or her passport or cannot be issued a regular passport. Second, a Filipino citizens being sent back to the Philippines. Third is an alien spouse of a Filipino and their dependents who have not yet been naturalized as a Filipino and who are traveling to the Philippines or is a permanent resident of the Philippines. Fourth is the aliens permanently residing in the Philippines who are not able to obtain foreign passport and other travel documentations. And lastly, a stateless person who is likewise or asylum in the Philippines. So for the next slide is a Philippine passport alone is not absolute proof of citizenship, and immigration authorities may deny entry if citizenship is not properly established, is fraudulently claimed, or is doubtful. In case of passport loss, the holder must report it immediately to the Department of Foreign Affairs or the DFA or the nearest Philippine post and submit an affidavit detailing the circumstances. Copies must be sent to the National Bureau of Investigation or the NBI and the Bureau of Immigrations or the BI. No new passports will be issued until proof of loss is verified and after a 15-day waiting period, except in urgent cases where a consular official may waive the requirement. If a lost passport is found after a replacement is issued, it must be destroyed or returned to the holder if only a travel document was provided. So we have also here the fantasy passport or the camouflage passport. Fantasy passports are not valid travel documents. They are usually issued by a private individual or organization, usually purporting to be from a fictitious or invented country or the fantasy land or authority political group. Camouflage passports are not legitimate travel documents. They are deceptive as they purport to be legitimate travel documents from countries which once existed or which have changed their names. The names of the camouflage passport generally have some basis in history or geography, if not in international recognitions of their statehood. So we have here also the visa requirements. A visa is a written endorsement made on a travel document or passport by a consular official denoting that the visa application has been properly examined and that the bearer is permitted to proceed to the country of his destinations. The visa thus issues is not a guarantee that the holder will be automatically admitted into the country, because admission of foreign nationals into the Philippines is a function of the immigration authorities at the port of entry. So entry visas are required for Palestinians, Taiwan passport holders, Hong Kong and Malaysian certificates of identity holders, and stateless persons. The HK and the UK and Macau Portuguese passports holders can enter with a visa for up to 7 days. Sierra Leone visitors must secure entry visas. Hong Kong SAR, British national overseas Macau Portuguese and Macau SAR passport holders can enter without a visa for up to 7 days. Nationals from unlisted countries can enter without a visa for up to 21 days if they have a passport valid for 6 months and a return ticket. They may also have stay for 59 days with a valid Sections 9 from visa from a Philippine consulate. So we have also here the treaty trader or the treaty investors. So a treaty trader is a foreigner who is entering the Philippines solely to carry on substantial day or commerce between the Philippines and the country of which he is a national pursuant to an existing treaty of commerce and navigation. So a treaty investor is a foreigner who seeks admissions for the purpose of developing and creating the operations of an enterprise in the Philippines where he has invested or is actively in the process of investing a substantial amount of capital or where his employer is invested or is actively in the process of investing a substantial amount of capital, provided that such employer is a foreign person or organization of the same nationality as the applicant and that the applicant is an overall supervisor or the executive. So an applicant for treaty investor visa must establish, among others, that seeks to enter the Philippines solely to the purpose of developing and directing the operations of an enterprise in the Philippines. Second, he seeks to enter the Philippines as spouse or child of an enterprise in the Philippines. Third, he is not applying for a non-immigrant visa. It's an effort to evade the quota or other restrictions which are applicable to immigrants. Fourth is he intends in good faith and he will be able to. For the next slide is a Subic Special Investor Visa under RA 7227, or the foreign national not categorized as restricted as determined by the Department of Foreign Affairs, visiting the Subic Freeport Zone for business and or tourism purposes may be allowed to enter all ports of entry of the zone and stay therein without a visa for a maximum period of 14 days, provided that upon arrival they present their passports, certificates of identity, or travel documents valid for at least 6 months beyond the intended stay in the zone and confirm onwards flight tickets. Foreign nationals who enter the zone shall be subject to the following instructions. First, they shall leave or depart from the Philippines only through the Subic Bay International Airport. Second, they shall not be allowed outside the secured area of the zone exempt to visit areas outside the secured area but within the zone, provided that they are escorted by the BI officers and or Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority or the SBMA officers duly deputized by the BI. Third, for those who intend to visit areas outside the zone and or extend their stay in the zone for any reasons beyond the 14-day period, must secure a visa waiver from the Department of Foreign Affairs, provided that upon securing such a visa waiver, the restrictions as provided herein shall no longer be applicable. So we also have here the Special Economic Zone visa under RA 7916. So any investor within the ECO zone whose initial investment shall not be less than US $150,000 or his or spouse and dependent children under 21 years of age shall be granted permanent resident status within the ECO zone. They shall have the freedom of ingress and egress to and from the ECO zone without any need of special authorization from the Bureau of Immigration. So PISA issues renewable 2-year working visas to foreign executives and skilled workers if no Filipino in the ecozone has the same expertise. As certified by DOLE, PISA must report visa holders to the Bureau of Immigration within 30 days. So foreign nationals in supervisory, technical or advisory roles cannot exceed 5% of an ecozone enterprises workforce special without special approval from the Labor Secretary. So ecozones are designated areas for industrial, tourist, commercial, banking, and the financial development, which may include industrial states, export processing zone, free trade zone, and tourist centers. So for the next slide is a special clerk economic zone visas under executive number 80 of 1993 and executive number 80s of 1993. So foreign nationals not categorized as restricted as determined by the different Department of Foreign Affairs visiting the Clark Eagle Zone for business and or tourist purpose may be allowed to enter the ports of the entry of the Clark Eagle Zone and stay therein without visa for a maximum period of 14 days, provided that upon arrival they present their passport, certificates of authority, or travel documents valid for at least 6 months beyond the intended stay in the Clark Eco Zone, and conferred onward flight tickets. So, 25 aliens admitted in the Clark Eco Zone may be permitted to visit areas within the Clark Eco Zone but outside the main zone, such as the subzone for business or tourism purposes, subject to the following conditions. First, insofar as practicable, the Bureau of Immigration or the BI shall be duly informed by the alien for his representative at least 24 hours in advance of the intended visit. Whenever such 24-hour is not possible, the Clark Development Corporations shall be informed in writing. Second, the alien concerned shall be escorted by authorized BI personnel. Third is at least one BI officer shall be detailed to escort every group of not more than 10 visiting aliens. An alien admitted in the zone may extend his temporary stay without beyond the 14-day limit to sit areas outside the zone, provided, however, that the BI upon written endorsement from the CDC. So here for the next slide is economic zone and the pre-port visa in RI 7922 or the foreign investors who establish business within the Cagayan economic zone and maintain a capital investments of at least 150 US dollar or are granted permanent residency within the zone along with their spouse, dependents, and unmarried children under 21. They can enter and exit the zone freely without Bureau of Immigration authorization. CISA also grant renewable 2-year working visas to foreign executives and highly skilled technicians if no Filipinos possesses their expertise. As certified by DOLE, CISA must report visa and residency grants to the Bureau of Immigration within 30 days. This does not affect a foreigner's eligibility for permanent residency under the Philippine laws. So, investor in tourist-related project or tourist establishments under Executive Order Number 63 or the foreign investors who invest at least 50,000 US dollars in tourism-related project or establishments are granted special investor residence status along with their spouse and unmarried minor children. As long as the investment remains, they must meet certain conditions: no criminal record involving moral turpitude, no contagious or dangerous disease, and no history of is- institutionalizations for mental disorders. They receive multiple entry, special investor resident visa, allowing them to enter and exit the Philippines with only a valid passport. They are exempt from alien immigrations and registration fees. The investor must visit the country at least twice a year, staying for at least 7 days per visit. If the investor withdraws or relocates the investment without approval, the Philippine government may revoke their visas. An annual report is required to confirm the investments remain active. So we also hear the extension of stay. In the case of non-immigrant visa holders who stay in the Philippines will exceed 59 days, the consular officer shall advise them that they should secure extensions of stay and register with the Bureau of Immigration and pay the necessary immigration fees. So for the next slide is the entry and admissions of an alien are matters of privilege, and there is no ministerial duty on the part of the commissioners of the immigration to extend the stay of a temporary visitor. The power of the commissioner of the immigration to extend the stay of a temporary visitor is a plenary. He is vested with the power and authority to grant such extension. Therefore, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs is not authorized to admit into the Philippines aliens for the temporary stay, or to extend the temporary stay of the alien visitor in its country, and the law vests such as power the Commissioner of the Immigrations. For the next slide is the exclusions of foreigners. So the law on Section 29, the following classes of aliens should be excluded from the entry of the Philippines. First is the ages insane persons and persons who has been insane. Persons afflicted with a loathsome or dangerous and contagious disease as epilepsy. Persons who have been convicted for a crime involving moral turpitude. Fourth is a prostitute or procurers or persons coming from any immoral purpose. Person likely to become public charge, paupers, vagrants, and beggar. Persons who practice polygamy or who believe in and advocate the practice of polygamy. Persons who believe in or advocate of overthrow by force and violence of the government and the Philippines or the constitute persons over 15 years of age, physically capable of reading, who cannot lead printed matter in ordinary use in language selected by the alien, persons who are members of the family, complying to excluded aliens unless the opinions of the commissioners of immigrations no hardships should would result for the admissions. Person accompanying an excluded person who is helpless for mental or physical disability or infancy, where protection or guardianship of such accompanying persons is required by excluded persons. Children under 15 years of age accompanied by a parent, except that any such children may be admitted in discussions at the Commissioners of Immigrations. Stowaways, except that the stowaway may be admitted in the discussions of the Commissioners of Immigrations, if otherwise admissible. Persons coming to perform unskilled manual labor in pursuance of a promise or offer for employment, expressed or implied, but these provisions shall not apply to persons bearing passport visas authorized by sections of this Act. So we also have here the persons who have been excluded or deported from the Philippines, but these provisions may be waived in the discretions of the Commissioner of the Immigrations, provided, however, that the Commissioner of the Immigrations shall not exercise his discretions in favor of aliens excluded or deported, the grant convictions or any crime involving moral turpitude or for any crime personalized under sections 45 and 46 of the Act or on the ground of the having engaged in hoarding. So we have here the persons who have been removed from the Philippines at the expense of the government of the Philippines and indigent aliens under the provisions section 43 of this Act, and who had now obtained the consent of the Board of Commissioners to apply for readmissions, and for persons not properly documented for admissions as may be required under the provisions of this Act number 41. So for the next slide is the international law affords sovereign states absolute discretions to determine whether or an alien is disqualified for entry into his territory. If an alien's entry will be beaten national security, public safety, public health, and public morals, exclusion is defined as the authority to deny entry to aliens who are barred by the immigrations as rules and regulations. So the purpose of the exclusion is to ensure that the aliens are allowed entry into the Philippines not pose as threats to any of three major categories of exclusions of this act declare such alien as being ineligible for entry rounds, namely public safety, public health, and national security. So for the next slide is the Section 25 for the purpose of determining whether aliens arriving in the Philippines belong to any of the classes excluded by the immigration laws. So the examining immigration officers may order such aliens detained on board the vessels bringing them in such or other places officers may designate. Such detentions should be sufficient length of time to enable the officers to determine whether they belong to an excluded class and removal. So for the next slide is the exit requirements. So the law under Section 22. So any alien about to depart from the Philippines temporarily for the depart permanent residence abroad shall, before leaving the country, apply to the Commissioner's Immigration for a clearance certificate. If the Commissioner finds that the applicant has no pending obligation with the government, its instrumentalities, agencies, and subdivisions, and there is no criminal record, civil administration, so the Commissioner shall be no issued a certificate upon surrender of the aliens and other showing his admissions and or residence in the Philippines, according to the Republic Act number 144 and Section 2. So we have also here the Republic Act number 9225 with the dual citizenship law. So under this law, natural born citizens of the Philippines who become citizens of another country shall be deemed not to have lost their Philippine citizenship. Consequently, they must file a petition under oath to the Commissioner of Immigrations for the issuance of the identification certificate. So, a copy of the birth certificate authenticated by the National Statistics Office is required to be submitted as proof of being natural born citizen of the Philippines. So we also have here the international law grants sovereign states the authority to determine whether an alien should be allowed into the territory. So if an alien threatens national security, public peace and health, or public morals, the state can be included. So we also have the exclusion refers to the power to deny entry to aliens by immigration laws under the laws. So its purpose is to ensure aliens admitted to the Philippines do not pose threats to public safety. So I think that's all for my part. Thank you and God bless.